Hi, I just wanted to make another intro here to this next video. This is a video I made 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, with Jayson Lowe, who is an infinite banking concept practitioner, has been at it for about 15 years, 17 years now to date. Today's July 17, 2024. And I rewatched it myself, and I was speaking of repetition in my last message, and I just want to say that the repetition of watching videos over again can be highly productive, because there were things in there that I had completely forgotten about. And please do listen to what he has to say. The one thing that I thought that was totally profound was the story about the lawyer that Nelson was trying to convince to start becoming his own banker. And the gentleman, as Jason mentions in the video, had the arrival syndrome probably to the 4th degree, is what Jason says. And then the story goes, Nelson knew that this guy felt like he knew everything, so he wasn't going to move forward with this at all, so Nelson cut the meeting short. And as he's leaving, the lawyer says, "Nelson, it's come to my attention that you loan money to folks." And he said, "Yes, I do." And so they proceeded to finance together, set up a contract, and the lawyer borrowed money from Nelson to buy an airplane. And then Nelson took the stream of money, the payments that were coming to him, and opened up another policy to handle taking that money. The very thing that he was trying to teach this guy, he asked to use Nelson's bank, and Nelson obliged. So I think that's just profound. And I guess the other thing is in the second half, Jason goes into what the problem is. The problem is that we are all, generally speaking, 99% of the population is running our banking needs through somebody else's books. Somebody else is profiting from everything that we're doing. We are running all of our money through somebody else's banking system. And that's a problem in the sense that they are making money off of us, when in fact we could be doing that ourselves. That's the problem. And banks are not our friends, so to speak. So anyway, enjoy the 2 videos, and I'll catch you next time. You've been with him how long?
Since October of 2018.
Ah,
Yeah, I joined his 10X Ambition program, and get to hang out with him literally every month. And he's been absolutely amazing.
yeah, he's an amazing guy. He's an amazing thinker.
He sure is.
The way he sees things is, I'm sure it's a skill he has developed, but it was innately in him, probably from the beginning of his life.
Oh, without a doubt. And he, I would wager that if him and Nelson had an opportunity to get acquainted, they would have been kindred spirits, because Dan often says that the problem is never the problem. The problem is how you think about the problem.
Yeah.
How much more closely aligned could you get with our Nelson Nash than that? And when I shared this, the developing the ability to rethink your thinking back in 2018, shortly after starting with Dan, that's what gave birth to Nelson's fifth golden rule. And I didn't know that until after Nelson passed and his son-in-law, David, shared with me prior to the last think tank. He said, I want you to know where that fifth golden rule came from. And I said, where did it come from? And he said, it came from you. And so that's how this amazing domino effect happened, is that Dan inspired me, and I just shared it openly with Nelson and with David, and Nelson received inspiration to create that fifth golden rule, which is to rethink your thinking. And that's where it came from.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that good?
So you kind of married them
Yeah.
through the ether.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that good?
That is.
And Scout's honor, I had no idea until David told me. No idea. And I was just, I was floored. I was like, oh my goodness, that's incredible. And
Well, you can see the light in you. You bring the light.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try.
That-
Just following orders.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Everyone has light, right? Everybody carries a light, but
Yeah.
yours is very bright.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Like I've only been to one real, live summit. I've been to the others virtually, but when available. But the one I did go to, and you go from room to room, going to different speakers, and they were all lit up, Jane
Yeah.
and everybody else, they're all lit up, but there was something special about your group,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Canfield is like on fire.
He's like the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. His light it's just different.
That's right.
Your light is very pure. It's
Thank you.
I'm not just trying to blow smoke up your butt.
No.
I'm saying that what I sense from you immediately. There was another, and I'll just use this as an example. There was another person that I didn't actually meet at that think tank, but I saw her, and I said, just her light that I saw from her, I said, I want to get to know her.
That's great.
And that was Leslie Batson.
Wow.
Who was at the time was a new practitioner.
Yeah.
She was a year ahead of me, I think.
Okay.
But she is on fire. I was on a call with her yesterday.
That's great.
We have a little mastermind that we meet with once a month. It's just 4 of us. And 3 of us are practitioners and 1 is not, but I encouraged him to become a practitioner. Because, well, for one reason, people find you, because he was saying, I can't find people that are like ready to do this. And I said, well, it's not free, but it's well worth the money and the experience, and to be
all day long
and be part of the group.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, you have a beautiful light.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
So I'm saying that also too to make the point that the universe just aligned you as the conduit to connect those 2 guys through the ether.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That is really cool. That is really cool. Yeah.
And it's great to be with you today and follow up. And I know that you had mentioned you wanted to pick my brain or whatever it is you want to go through. Let's let's do
Well,
it. Whatever I can help you with.
I guess I wanted to have you, I'd like you to talk about meeting Nelson, the typical stuff, but I also wanted you to maybe talk about briefly if Nelson ever shared with you how he really came to this. Now, I know he's shared it with us about, having the heart attack, and being in the hospital and having a voice and, whatever, that you better do this. But I wondered if he had talked about it in any further depth with you.
Oh, goodness. He expanded on, what gave rise to the inspiration for him was first and foremost, like long before he had, a pretty serious scare with his heart. He found himself, if you think of the rapid inflation that we're experiencing right now, it's really not manifesting itself the way that it did back in the early 1980s when interest rates skyrocketed and peaked at 21.5%. If you were prime, and Nelson often said, I've never met anyone who's prime. And so you were paying even more than that. And as you know, from having read his book, but just to sort of set the stage for what he expanded on and talked about over the years, is that he said in that period of time, I had $500,000 in debt tied to real estate. He had a joint venture partner who was a very prominent attorney in the Birmingham area who ended up filing an assignment in bankruptcy. And so Nelson found himself in an even worse predicament. Now, he knew that he could have exercised that very same option. He could have said, you know what, I'm going to throw in the towel, file an assignment in bankruptcy, surrender the assets, and alleviate myself of all this debt. And you've heard him say that unless you understand the problem, the solution just won't matter to you. And what one of my current mentors, Dan Sullivan, often says is that your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain is looking for. And so Nelson began to look for a solution to the problem, which was, how do I get myself out from under having to pay all of this interest on this massive amount of debt? In the early 1980s, $500,000 in debt was a remarkable amount of debt. And people were expressing to him, well, Nelson, why don't you just sell the real estate? And his reaction was, what fool is going to buy this real estate from me when they have to borrow money from someone else's bank at such a high rate of interest? He didn't realize that he had the solution to the problem right in front of him, because the problem wasn't the problem. The problem was how he was thinking about the problem. And once he came to that realization, this was before infinite banking concepts was even born. And he came to the realization that I've already got this pool of financial value that I've built up inside of these whole life insurance policies. I can borrow money from the life insurance companies at 8% plus to get rid of the snakes and dragons at 21.5 plus. And it took him 13 years.
Yes.
13 years. He didn't throw in the towel. He stepped onto the field and said, I'm going to win this. And he was determined and he persevered and he worked his way through that. And then he found himself in a position where he felt that he should be teaching others about how to do this, but it was nothing new at that time that you could access policy loans from a life insurance company. That was nothing new. But when Nelson had that health scare and he literally had his heart taken out of his chest cavity to be replumbed in 4 different places, he always shared that while he was being kept alive by this heart and lung machine, he was alive, but he wasn't really living for that 4 or 5 hour time frame that his heart was out of his chest cavity. He was just merely existing. And the point that he was trying to get across as a teaching moment is that is the equivalent of what people are doing as it relates to who's controlling the banking function in your life. Not only are people abdicating the responsibility, but they're also abdicating the opportunity, because the one character in the play, the banker, is the one who's making the bank owner, pardon me, is the one who's making the most money. Understandably so.
Yeah, as he should.
You're right. And so he received inspiration. Nelson was very, very open about his faith and his Christianity, and how he received inspiration from the Lord to say, hey, listen, you've got a lot of information up here in your head bones. You need to get up, get off this hospital bed, and get to work and start teaching people how to become their own banker.
Mm.
And that's what gave rise to the original, and David has the original manuscript of the book, where Nelson would utilize these overhead slides using an overhead projector.
Right.
And David has all of this original documentation.
Yeah.
And it was long before the printed, version of the book and all of that. And what I love most about that story is that Nelson said, when I first started to teach this process, I would find myself quite often in an empty room. Many people would confirm their attendance to come and learn. And then I would show up and nobody would end up attending. So again, he was faced with a choice. I can persevere, keep going, or I can throw in the towel.
Right.
And he chose to keep going. Thank God.
Thank God. Yeah.
And look at what that's culminated into today. Because do you think he was dealing with all the noise that we deal with today? You better believe he was.
Yeah.
And he just figured out for himself that he was going to tune all of that out completely. And he was going to try to help people catch this process. He would supply the knowledge, but you had to catch it, because if you didn't catch it, you weren't really a prospect for him.
Right.
And he certainly wasn't in the convincing business either. He didn't spend his time trying to convince people. I don't know if you heard this story. I have to share this. It's so amazing. So he's sitting down with another prominent attorney in the Birmingham area, and he's talking about this process, infinite banking concepts, the process of becoming your own banker. And the attorney suffered from stage 4 arrival syndrome. I've already learned everything there is to know. There isn't anything new that you can teach me. I have arrived in knowledge. So Nelson ended the meeting early. And while he was leaving the meeting, the attorney said, "Oh, but Nelson, I heard that you lend money. Is that true?" And he said, "Well, yes, sir, it certainly is." Nelson financed an airplane for that attorney, and he used the stream of payments that the attorney was making to purchase what he was trying to convince the attorney to buy. So he went and purchased more dividend-paying participating whole life insurance policies using the stream of repayments that were coming back from the attorney. So Nelson thought to himself, in that moment, I will never attempt to convince someone
Right.
ever again.
Yep.
And it's those stories that I reflect on, in thinking of how blessed I was to be mentored by Nelson and to spend the quality time with him that I had the opportunity to spend. And every interaction with him was a teaching moment. He was, he just really thrived in his unique ability to teach. And he would teach without supplying answers. He would teach by helping you to rethink your thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what he was so brilliant at. And he's right here with me day in and day out, right next to my computer monitor here. And I get to glance down at him every now and then and just hope that we're serving the message well. Because he shared with me a few weeks before he passed that infinite banking concepts is all about the message, not the man. And he wanted the message to live on. He wanted the message to continue to be a source of inspiration for people. He was very humble and didn't want an emphasis to be placed on him. He wanted the emphasis to be placed on the message. And that was a very incredible realization for me, I think, and just a moment of even deeper respect, for him, because he just spent so much time closer to his graduation talking about the fact that he believed his graduation was imminent. And I started to get really upset because I was thinking, I'm really going to miss him, and I need to do something to pay tribute to him, and I need to focus on him. And he just reeled me in. And that was Nelson.
Yeah. And I also think that that's probably why he was able to continue when he would be the only one in the room, because it wasn't about him.
That's right.
It was about the message,
the
concept, the information, the knowledge, to share it with open-minded folks that he didn't have to convince, but they would be open to listening. And very much, I'm sure that's the way you run your practice, and that's the way I run mine. I don't chase people.
No. Oh gosh, no.
I don't have a funnel or any of that. And those that do, that's fine. It's just not something I want to do right now.
Yep.
I just share the information, and I literally tell people, I won't chase you. I want to work with people that have initiative.
Absolutely.
Want to own it, because someday we will all graduate.
Yep.
And I want them to know what I know as much as they want to know, so that they can guide themselves, their kids, their grandkids, all the way down the line. They have to take the initiative and do their own thinking.
Agreed. And we often point out that the two most important words in the title of this book are right here.
Your own. That's awesome. I'm so glad you really pointed that out.
And that's credit to Ryan Griggs. It was Ryan Griggs on a podcast episode where he was just having a conversation, and he was talking in reference to the communication that he has with clients and how he points that out to clients. And that was it was brilliant, because Nelson always said, the more you see, the more you'll see you didn't see.
Yes.
And what we want clients to do is to become independent. We don't want clients to develop a greater degree of dependence.
Right.
Because that's not truly becoming your own banker.
Right.
That's becoming the banker with your advisor's guidance and coaching and holding your hand and all of that.
Yeah.
But really becoming your own banker is where that peaceful, stress-free way of life is really truly achieved, because you're not dependent upon anyone else, and you're not abdicating the opportunity to anyone else, as Nelson often said.
Yes.
And it's just I appreciate you asking that question earlier, because it brings back a lot of great memories.
Yeah. Well, I'm envious of all the practitioners that got to meet him. I missed him by, a matter of months. But anyway, so I'm grateful that they did all the videotapes that people can watch and we can share and all that.
For sure.
So, I mean, I found my way through it like most people, I think, find their way to this simply by accident.
Yeah.
Something happens, right? I guess that's probably how we discover so many things. And it can be used in so many different ways. You know, it's great that it can be an emergency fund. It can be, you know, an investment tool. You know, it's not an investment, right? It's really an asset. All you have to do is offer to sell it, and you'll see that people are willing to buy it. It's an asset. Now, my wife and I have decided we're early in this. I'm a little over 3 years into this, but I sat here for a reason. That fence that you see behind me was the first major loan we took.
Oh, wow.
Policy.
All right.
We took a loan to put up that fence.
That's fantastic.
Like in the first year.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
But as Nelson would say, before you take the loan, know how you're going to pay it back.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so we paid it right back. I mean, we paid it back within a year.
That's great.
I'll just say this and finish with this part of the talk. This room I'm sitting in right here, this was supposed to just be a typical, simple, screened-in room.
Okay.
But as time went on, my wife had other ideas, which now I'm very grateful she did. But it's going to still be a screened-in room, but it's all finished, insulated. It's got electrical. It's going to have a fan. It's going to have lights, everything. If we ever decide to put windows in, it'll be a room.
That's great.
But we're going to start with it. And this is now our 3rd year into the policy. And we financed this whole thing ourselves through that. And I'm already paying it back even before I finished taking the loans. I mean, the last loan I took was last week, and I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, and it still hasn't gotten here, but I'm already sending money back.
Wow. And that's your way.
Yeah.
Of becoming your own banker.
Yes.
Right. That's the essence of it. Your own, meaning the way that I might go about it is my own way.
Yes. And
your way and my way are just different. They're not right or wrong, good or bad.
You think about your own thinking, right? Your own. And so the other thought, it's running around in my mind is I could, and this is probably for our audience, I could go down to the local bank and say, we just put this addition on. Could I get a line of credit on it?
Yeah.
And pay the policy back immediately. I could do that. I don't know that I will. I might, but I can do it whenever I want. Is the beauty of it. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I can not send any money right now.
There's a gentleman who I met years ago in 2012. His name is Bill Lenderman. What a fitting last name.
Lenderman. Oh my God.
And so Bill said, often when I'm speaking to people about this, I often ask the question, does having money readily available when you need it take away any of your options?
Is in terms of, okay, so when did you start your own policies?
July of 2008.
So you've been at it, for what's that?
15 years.
15 years. Oh my God. I can't imagine what it's like at 15. It feels
pretty incredible.
So good at 3.
It's pretty incredible.
like I'm just getting to the point where you're going to start to see it really start to move. But then I've heard, 6 to 8 years, you really, now
Oh
15.
goodness.
And
Oh
obviously
yeah.
there's people that have been at it for 20, 30 years,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah,
David
we have
Stearns.
we've got 68 policies now in our family banking system.
And when you
And
say, excuse me, when you say family, you mean your immediate family and extended family?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got policies in place on all 4 of my children, all of my nieces, all of my nephews, my sister-in-law, my sister, key employees in our group of companies, my spouse, etc. And I'll tell you, when you don't have to rely upon a commercial bank for anything other than the convenience of debit, that's a pretty peaceful, stress-free way of going about life financially. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it takes time. That's what
Yeah,
Nelson, he did such a brilliant job of really level setting a person's expectations around it, because he said in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, that it would take the average person 20 years to be able to achieve the degree of what I just described, where you no longer rely on a commercial bank for anything other than the convenience of debit, that it would take the average person about 20 years to get there. And we live in this society that, 15 years ago was much less of a instant gratification than we are today. It's much more prominent today. You've got instant coffee, instant food. You can order products from Amazon right now and have them show up on your front doorstep today. And so people develop this way of living, and then with an expectation that everything that they do financially is going to fall into that instant gratification outcome. And that's just not the way of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept. It's meant to be achieved incrementally and gradually over a period of years. And Nelson always said, if you show me someone who's depositing premium into their policies for 7 years or longer, I'll show you someone who's conquered Parkinson's law. And the interpretation of Parkinson's that he's referring to is that your expenses rise to equal your income. And what was once a luxury now becomes a necessity. If you can take a portion of your financial resources, because you're already prioritizing 100% of your financial resources. If you earn $1, you're already prioritizing where every penny of that dollar is going to go. So if you want to become your own banker and you want to set about that journey, you have to first possess the desire to do that. But you also have to go through a period of pretty serious introspection to say, I have 100% of my financial resources already prioritized and allocated. I need to reprioritize and reallocate a portion of my financial resources to crank up premium on dividend paying participating whole life insurance contracts. And I need to incrementally and gradually expand that over a period of time.
Yeah.
And so when you hear people struggling or trying to think, where am I going to get the money to start? The money's already there. 100% of your financial resources are already flowing away from you. You just have to go through that period of introspection to say, change is required in order for me to take control of this function gradually and incrementally over a period of years.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Isn't that good?
Yep. That's great. And I would also just add that even the commercial bank down the road in your hometown, anybody's hometown, they had to do the same thing. It was incremental. It was slow. It's the same thing. It takes time to build that.
That's right.
Foundation.
You have to win the deposits of customers You have to capitalize the bank. That's how you get a charter. You put up a lot of money.
Yep.
And so you have to capitalize the system and then win the deposits of customers. That's a business.
Yes.
And when you begin to take control of this function in your life, you're creating a new business where no business previously existed.
Yes.
And so that's the key, is that it really truly is a business. It's not a financial plan.
Right.
Infinite banking concepts is a lifestyle. It's not a financial plan. Never has been, never will be.
Right. Yes. And so Nelson became the banker for that lawyer who wanted a plane.
That's right.
And
he went out and bought the very same thing that he was trying to convince the attorney to buy.
Yep. Bought more of it.
He just thought, my goodness, welcome to the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
But yeah, such a great, one of many amazing stories.
So I got a couple other questions. Let me ask you, these might seem obvious, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about them.
Sure.
What is maybe the number one or number two reason that people say, aha, I get it. I want to do this. I want to start a policy or start this business?
The number one reason is that they gain clarity on the problem. That's it. Because without clarity on the problem, the solution just won't matter to you. And when I say clarity on the problem, I mean understanding that at present, all of your earned income, regardless of the source, is flowing through the books of someone else's bank. And who's doing all the work to earn that income? The bank? No, you are. And everyone else is getting all your money. And so how much longer do you want that to continue? If you don't see it as a problem, then there's no time frame in terms of how long you want. You'll just think that that's your lot in life and that it just needs to carry on that way. Versus if you recognize and you clearly identify that as a problem, okay, I see it. I see that doing all the work, earning all the money, having all that money flow through the books of someone else's bank, and every dollar that I spend for all the necessities and all the things that I need throughout my lifetime is a dollar that I can never use again, never earn interest on again, not only for my generation, but for every future generation that comes after me.
Right.
If I have clarity that that's a problem, and then you present a solution to that problem to me, well, it's going to mean everything to me. I am going to want to implement that solution. The mistake that advisors, and I'm being general here, I'm not broad stroking every advisor, I'm just speaking in general, is that advisors immediately go to the solution without first verifying that their prospect has a crystal clear understanding of the problem. And then they wonder why their prospective client doesn't do anything. Because the solution didn't matter.
Yeah.
They didn't recognize that they had a problem.
Right. Or the seriousness of it.
No kidding. And it's not, for heaven's sakes, it's all about understanding where the money's flowing to, who the money's being put to work for, and for how long. And it has absolutely nothing to do with addressing the yield of an investment. That's such a fatal error in thinking about infinite banking concepts. It has nothing to do whatsoever with addressing the yield of an investment. It has everything to do with how you go about financing the things that you need throughout your lifetime, which can certainly include investments. But far too often, again, you see that noise out there. Let's compare a tool, participating dividend paying whole life insurance, to a whole wide range of other products. That has nothing to do with infinite banking. That has nothing to do with becoming your own banker. Nelson, he expressed this so often. If you look at the illustration of a policy, that's what you can see. Infinite banking concepts is the unseen. It's everything that you do with that policy, which will never show up on an illustration.
Right.
And if you're a life insurance agent, I want you to rewind this and play that back again. And then rewind it and play it back again. And that's coming from Nelson, not from yours truly. Nelson always expressed that. If you're a life insurance agent, I want you to listen to that again. The policy illustration is the scene. It's just the tool. And if you put the best tool for the job in the hands of an incompetent, not only are you not going to turn out any good work with the tool, you're going to break the damn tool.
Yep.
Infinite banking concepts is the unseen. It's everything that you do with that policy or your system of policies.
Yeah.
Isn't that good?
Yes, that is. It's excellent. It's excellent. It reminds me of the story that he would tell about the fella that had the land.
Well,
it came and said, I need some cash.
Yeah.
I'd like to sell you part of it. And then he came back later and said, I'll sell it all to you. And what was it? Now, you know the story better than I.
Yeah. He sold it for well over $500 an acre and purchased it for less than 50. That's the unseen of infinite
unseen.
banking.
On you don't see that on the illustration.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he would always ask the question, do you believe Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey understand this? Not a chance.
Not the way they talk about it.
Not at all.
They have no idea.
And so it was just it was such a blessing to know him.
Yeah. And not to get off on any terribly negative stuff, but when Mr. Ramsey poo-poos this, stay away from life insurance, the agents want to make big commissions and all that. I think he really does not understand it. And what if he did? How many lives could he change?
Oh my goodness. I think that, Mr. Ramsey is just a sharp example of the arrival syndrome.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
As it relates to dividend paying participating whole life insurance as a tool.
Yeah.
Set aside the concept, set aside the process for a moment. Yes. And just examine the tool, the attributes of the tool. I think that Mr. Ramsey believes that he's learned everything there is to know about that tool and that there isn't anything new that he can learn about that tool. And that's really unfortunate, but that's his path. There isn't anything that anyone can do to influence that. And there's no point in attempting to, really, because remember, Nelson said as it relates to the process and the concept, it's more caught than it is taught.
Right. And
so Mr. Ramsey drives in his own lane, and that's the journey that he's on, and good for him. It's just different than ours. And it's not that he's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just that he thinks differently than Nelson. That's the essence of it, really.
It's as simple as that.
And so, but he just chooses to pontificate from the rooftops about how much he dislikes whole life insurance. And that's great. He can share his opinion with the world. And most people, as Nelson often said, most people would rather die than think.
Yes.
And so,
that and public speaking.
it's very true. But it's no different than any other human being.
Yes.
I get contacted frequently from people who they'll make a remark like, I was first introduced to this process 5 years ago and I didn't do anything with it. And then I would ask, well, why now? Well, we've been consuming your podcast. We've been watching your content on your YouTube channel. And how long have you known about us? Oh, we've been stalking you for 6 months now. That's fantastic. Well, if you're ready to go now, we're ready to help you. And if you could do me a favor in your own words, just describe to me what the problem is. And if I get a fairly accurate description of the problem, then I know that they've consumed that content. If I don't get an accurate description of the problem, then we still have some educating to do. And so that's applicable to any human being.
Yeah. That's a great way to, people sometimes talk to me, they'll contact me and they'll say, I found my way to this. But not to pick on Mr. Ramsey, but he would say, he's saying that this is all a scam. And I would say, well, he's talking about a product that's been around for a couple hundred years,
right?
Way longer than the stock market.
Yeah, I'm sure, being that it's a $200 billion industry in the United States alone, that Mr. Ramsey would have been receiving some presidential award for identifying that scam by now.
Yes. Yes. Good point.
Right?
Good point.
And so,
good point, Jason. Yeah.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it's just noise. That's all it is.
That's what I'll say to people. It's really just more noise that and you just have to guard the door to your mind, what's coming in.
Absolutely.
And be your own thinker.
Absolutely.
So I want to bring up that you just came out with a new book.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, my teammate Richard and I released the first book in a series, as a matter of fact.
Oh, in a series.
So there'll be a new addition to the series coming out every quarter. And the first addition to the series is Canadian's Guide to Wealth Building Without Risk. And it's an 82-page read. And we decided that each book in the series would follow, and credit to Dan Sullivan for inspiring us to address it this way, is the Toronto to Chicago rule of thumb. And all that means is that if you get on an airplane in Toronto, Canada, and your destination is Chicago, that by the time the wheels touch down in Chicago, you should have finished reading the book. So we want it to be a very simple, there's lots of illustration in terms of, I'll just show you an example to describe what I mean. So there's lots of illustration in the book because people learn differently, right? And so graphics, and we try to tap into people's different methods of learning. The audio version of these books is coming out on Audible, so that if people prefer to listen, that will be available. If they prefer to read, of course, that's available, and so on. And we were inspired to address it that way because we want people to move along at their own pace. Because we find when somebody finally catches the message, my goodness, they've caught it.
Yeah.
And they're motivated and very eager to begin implementing the process. And there's just no friction. There's no pressure. There's no trying to back someone into a corner and reach into their wallet.
Yes, there's no sales portion
not
to
at all.
it.
Not at all. And so
yeah,
it's exciting. Yeah, we're pretty excited. And we give all credit to Nelson, and we dedicate every book in the series to Nelson. It's not meant to be a replacement in any way, shape, or form to Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, or his book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, or The Case for IBC.
Yep.
This book is only meant to serve as an extension, because Nelson spent so much time really teaching, and we want to share all of that with the marketplace and just get that out there. Because nobody going forward is going to have the opportunity to meet him in person and to have had the opportunity to get to know him the way that Richard and I did. And we just want to share that.
Yeah.
Isn't that good?
That is excellent. Would you say once a quarter?
Yeah. Every 90 days. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. The first 3 books are already written. And so we just released the first one. And now we've got a bit of a library so that we stay on top of that time frame of quarterly releases.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing, well, let me just say, the thing there are other, obviously, there's hundreds of practitioners, and a number of them have written books, not to replace, but to complement Nelson's book.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it all, too, is here's a prime example. You and I on this call, we're both of IBC practitioners, and there's no sense of competition. Now, granted, you're in Canada and I'm in the US, but you are potentially moving to the US. Is that correct?
Well, so our US division of our parent company, so Ascendant, which is a company that I founded, our US division named Life Eva is our plan is to commence operations January 1. And we're very much looking forward to that. And to your point, like we just as a business and as people, like we truly live in a competition-free zone. You can never ever become the best version of someone else or some other business, right? You show up in your unique ability, teamwork. You show up in the marketplace in your unique ability. And that's what we emphasize in our group among our teammates is if you're thinking collaboratively versus thinking competitively, then collaboration opportunities begin to appear everywhere.
Yes.
And that is so true. You don't have to own the ocean to sail on it.
Excellent.
Right.
I love that.
Plenty of room for everybody to sail on the ocean.
Yes. Yeah. And I was mentioning earlier, before we started, but that I'm part of a small little mastermind. There's only 4 of us. And we're all in the same business. And we just love to support each other, help each other.
That's great.
I love that. It's where I want to be.
That's great.
And then therefore we can, as a group, help all those that are open-minded to listen.
Definitely.
And make up their own minds.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I think that's, well, how would you like to finish this, and how can people get a hold of, we want to say this.
Oh, goodness.
How people can get a hold of you in Canada, and you said 1st of January, you'll be here in the US. Where are you going to be in the US?
We're going to be headquartered out of Tampa, Florida.
Uh-huh.
And it's our intention to, of course, be able to operate nationwide. That of course, is just going to come with time and all of the systems and process and people that we need to get into place and to get operational. And so we're quite excited about that. But in the interim, I would encourage anybody who's watching this or listening to it, where you should begin is to watch R. Nelson Nash's documentary that I had commissioned on him. And you can view that at nelsonnashfilm.com. Again, that's nelsonnashfilm.com. And there's no cost associated with that. It's just a website that you'll land on, and you can watch that amazing documentary. And then for folks who are in the business, we also created a website named learnfromnelson.com. Again, that's learnfromnelson.com. And there's a lot of archived footage that we've shared that is beneficial not only to advisors, but to the general public as well. People who can just really, truly learn from Nelson. And then thirdly, stay in touch on social media. If you haven't visited our YouTube channel, Bankers Vault, we post new content to Bankers Vault every day on our YouTube channel. We have hundreds of videos, amazing content. We have our Wealth Without Bay Street podcast, which is also on YouTube, where we've got a Wealth Without Bay Street YouTube channel. And on that channel, we interview existing clients who have been in process for many years. And so you get to hear from real people who are implementing this in their lives. And we're just privileged to interview them and share their story with the world. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, is to always be learning. Because as Nelson said, there's no such thing as having arrived in knowledge. There's always something new to learn. Yeah. And so take advantage of those resources that are available 24/7.
All right.
It's good.
Very good. Thank you, Jayson.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
And I hope it's helpful for you. And I hope that it's helpful for anybody who listens to it or watches it. That is what would bring me joy, is if somebody said, hey, I watched that and it was really helpful for me. Good.
Yes. Yes. Me too. Get one person. It's well worth the time.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Jayson, we'll keep in touch. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Raymond.
Yes. Take care, Jayson. All the
You
best.
bet. You too.
All right. All right.
Bye-bye.